Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John. Each and every week, I sit down here and I answer your questions, and I'll get to how to send that in just a minute. But I just want to say one thing. This is episode 290, which means not long from now will be episode 300. And I think I've mentioned this many times in the podcast. When I first started podcasting, Pat Flynn told me that most podcasts don't even make it to episode 7. So what keeps this podcast going is you find people. So if you have questions, send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'm more than happy to answer your questions, and let's get started with an interesting series of questions today. Our first one's from Mark, and I like this. Mark says, I'm 37 and has been a hobbyist Olympic lifter, what a nice phrase, for 10 years or so, competing occasionally for fun. I'm long overdue for a change, so I decided to try my hand at rock climbing, but would like to keep a couple of short strength weightlifting sessions each week for general fitness and not lose touch completely with the Olympic lifts, okay? I've seen you recommend snatch, front squat, and loaded carries as a go-to workout. Do you have an equivalent workout using the clean and jerk? I've seen minimalist 2-day programs in a few of your books, but they seem to use the clean as opposed to the clean and jerk on the second day. Reading between the lines, I think clean and jerk, push press, and RDLs might make sense, but I have been known to be a chronic overthinker. Well, minimalist training is wonderful. And I got to tell you folks, I guess I have a love-hate relationship with minimalist training because I'm not a big fan of raw beginners jumping into the programs. As a kettlebell person, for a long time, there was this, I remember being at an RKC and a person saying something along the lines of, very few people should ever go beyond the program minimum. And at the time, it was just the snatch and the get up. And I remember thinking, boy, obviously this person doesn't work with the kind of people I work with because that would drive them crazy quickly. The original program minimum was the bench press and the snatch, which I still think is interesting because the number of people who take the bench press seriously on the planet, I would not be surprised could fit into my office here. Okay, that wasn't mean. I teach the bench press. It's a different kind of exercise. When Pavel wrote Power to the People and he said side press and deadlift, I told him not long after that if he had bench press and deadlift, there would not have ever been another book written about weightlifting. So on minimalist programs, I like where Mark is from here. So Mark has been, doing the Olympic lifts for 10 years. So he has that background. So if he does slide over to a small minimalist program, he's going to get a lot of the benefits out of it. I do think for many of you who are on fat loss programs, I think we often overtrain on fat loss programs. Tom Furman is famous for his book, You Can't Outrun a Donut. I think I mentioned recently that on a really bad snowy day here in Salt Lake, not bad, snow was great, but you couldn't really get outside. I went up to the school that I coach at and I did a treadmill. My God, I can't believe I did a treadmill for an hour walk just to see how far I could go. But I had that cool little calorie counter in there. And I got to tell you, an hour of walking, I don't think it was over 200 calories burned in an hour. 1/17 of a standard bag of chips is about the same number of calories. It's real hard to out-exercise bad nutritional decisions. So now, to get to your point, I'm a big fan of minimalist programs. I think you were referencing one of the great programs I did in my career, which originally was bench press and snatch, and then 2 days later was squat and clean, or it could have been a little bit different, but it's not important. Later, after long discussions, we moved to bench press and snatch and bench press and front squat because of the needs I specifically needed at that time. I like your idea here. So folks, he's saying the clean and jerk, the push press, and RDLs. if you're doing Olympic style clean and jerks, I think the push press is redundant here. But I just want you to think about this. I don't want to go too far on this. How about, since it is it's the king of lifts, the clean and jerk, as that's what I was taught when I was young. The clean and jerk, and if you did snatch grip RDLs, I think you would cover a lot of ground. But to be honest, if all you did is clean and jerk, that's a pretty darn good workout. I remember as I got along later and later in my career, first I could get down to I could only do 6 clean and jerks in training. And then later I got to the point that I only clean and jerked on the platform with officials, because the hit you take from heavy clean and jerks is so big, it's really hard to recover from. So Mark, if you're thinking about a truly minimalist program, 1 day a week, why don't you do that clean and jerk followed by a suitcase carries, and tell me how that goes. And the only reason, if you're going to stick with this snatch, front squat, loaded carry 1 day, and then we're do, clean and jerk and suitcase carry the other, I think that takes you from a minimalist program to a really good program, which is always something I like to think about. And one thing, Mark in his last 2 words of his question said, chronic overthinker. There's 2 kind of issues I often deal with. Very often people don't think for themselves or try things, and then they get caught up in the minutia of not thinking for themselves. And on the other hand, then they take that too far and overthink it to the point that they haven't trained in 3 years, So all of you are chronic overthinkers. Relax. Generally, some of your first thoughts are pretty good thoughts, and stick it out, okay? Mark, fun question, and thank you so much. Got a question now from Joe. Mark and Joe, great questions this week. So Joe says, for the past 7 months, I've been swimming twice a week, doing kettlebell workouts twice a week, alternating emphasis on swings or clean and presses, that's pretty good, and golfing at least once a week. Life is good, Joe tells us. What can I do to add in my winter training program that would improve my rotation, mobility, and flexibility for the next golf year? Just for background, he just turned 67, young man, served 25 years in the Marines, Semper Fi, have numerous sports type injuries one would expect to include a chronic left knee problem. So not exceeding an injury threshold is always on my mind. Well, the first thing, you're probably getting all the rotation work you need for most people by doing the swimming and kettlebell. I'm not a big fan, and I think I've said it multiple times here on this podcast, of doing rotation work in the weight room. As a discus thrower for, when I was pretty good for 41 years, the last thing I needed was more rotation training. And the only thing I would say I would recommend for golfers is to get, if you're right-handed, buy yourself a left-handed club or 2 or 3 and go to the range and hit, and I call it goofy side, but so we'd have our throwers throw left-handed sometimes, is, hit a bucket of balls with your left side. Maybe you can go putting, maybe a driver and a putter, and drive and putt with the left side. It'll be interesting because it's going to make your brain work really hard. But I also think there's value in kind of almost balancing the 2 sides off. I had a great conversation years ago that the easiest way to get into the Hall of Fame in baseball is to throw right-handed and bat left-handed. But when I think about it as a strength coach, I also think, that I would also give your spine a little bit of love in both directions. For mobility and flexibility, I'm a huge fan of Tim Anderson's Original Strength. If you type in on my YouTube channel here, I have long mobility workouts sharing the information that I learned from Tim. I'm a big fan. I think there's real value in it. And I don't know of anything better. Maybe you've heard a few times, my granddaughter Elowen is visiting me this week, and I spend a lot of time with her on the floor. And I got to tell you, being on the floor with babies and rolling around and playing with them is marvelous for your movement and flexibility patterns. So to summarize real quick, let me just give you a quick idea. First off, when you're in the weight room, I would like you to think about anti-rotation exercises, and it's already built in for you. You have, during those kettlebell workouts, do suitcase carries at the end of each workout. And I just think the suitcase carry is by far the best anti-rotation exercise I know. I like what it does. So if I only did suitcase carries in my left hand, marvelous things would happen to my right side. I'm sure the left side would compensate too. But it is that counterbalance. Every step, the system has to change. Suitcase carries are wonderful. Any kind of planking will help you with anti-rotation. I like to use bands coming down from the ceiling and then coming sideways from a rack or whatever you can hook up. You could probably use a doorknob and loop a rubber band, an elastic, a Dynamax band, a Dick Hartzell's Flex band. And the things I'd recommend is the vertical plank. That's where you stand, your fists will be about sternum height, and you just stand as tall as you can and hold. And it's embarrassing because you get smoked not moving at all. And then if you do the sideways ones, you just stand here and the band is pulling you to the door, and you just stand vertically and fight it, and then do the opposite. That would be great for your anti-rotation work. So those vertical planks, both from the ceiling and from the doorknob, suitcase carries, and then original strength. I think there's great value there. And I also like the fact that you're swimming. I think that swimming is underrated. Now, there are issues with swimming. The big one is you have to have access to a pool. I guess you'd also should have a swimsuit. You know, that'd be nice for the rest of us. And you also have to be able to swim. And if you don't, anyone listening who doesn't know how to swim and ride a bicycle, it's kind of like the old fruit tree thing. The best time to plant a fruit tree was 10 years ago. And the second best time is today. If you're ever in a situation where you have to be able to swim, it's better to learn early than too late. So I like that. And so a little plug for swimming. I like what you're doing here. And really, all I'm asking you to do is add the suitcase carry, those vertical planks, and maybe some original strength. But what you're doing, I'm impressed and I like. Thank you, Joe. Good question. Now, I might screw this name up, and I apologize, okay? And there's another thing I'm going to screw up right with. Gediminas. My name's Gediminas, and I'm a 24-year-old karate coach from Lithuania. Lithuania has a tremendous track and field, including the discus tradition, so welcome aboard. First off, I just want to say how much I love your podcast. It's been a huge inspiration for me. Thank you. You're welcome. I love doing this. I've got a question I can't stop thinking about. Okay, if you could design a training plan to keep someone physically healthy, not focused on professional sports, from age 4 all the way into their 80s and beyond, what would it look like? I know everyone's different. Some people are born for deadlifting, but just want to play golf. Others love karate, or karate, as I've heard on television, and luckily have the bodies for it. But what I'm really asking is, if you could lay out basic guidelines for how to train throughout life, from kindergarten to retirement home, what would it look like? This question came to me after reading Easy Strength. You can get the book Easy Strength at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. I have Easy Strength Omni book there, and a rather poor selling book called Easy Strength for Fat Loss, which I think is really good. And the results people are getting are fantastic, but the market for fat loss is just maybe overdone. I currently train kids 4 to 17 years old, and I adapt their training based on their age and needs. I'm also planning to start adult classes soon, so I'd love to understand the difference in priorities in training across a lifetime. So training across a lifetime, it's funny, as I was reading it, I already had it built in. In fact, I think if you get a hold of Easy Strength Omni book, I think I write out this answer. So the first part is I'm going to break it into 4 age groups, okay? And the first age group, and it's funny because you're working with them right now, basically from birth to age 17, I think the most important thing we do, and this comes from, well, I'm going to say George Herbert, but he's French, so it should be Herbert, I think. But his great classic where they were pulling up, their ship pulled up on a volcano, and he began to notice that survivors all had a certain skill set. For example, and I've noted before in this podcast, like one of the great skill sets for survival is swimming. If you're ever in a situation that involves swimming, those who can swim survive, unless the rest of us go back in and save them. When we're preparing for the 2002 Olympics here in Salt Lake City, I had to go to a whole bunch of emergency awareness meetings because of my administrative job at the time and the fact that the events of 9/11 had just happened. So there was a big fear here in Salt Lake there would be a terrorist attack. It was interesting that the USOC didn't want any mention of 9/11, which and I thought when we carried the destroyed flag, I thought that was a nice sign. Of course, the Olympics are funny. They also, I don't want to get into the 1936 Olympics. But we were told at this meeting that all you need to do for almost any kind of huge emergency was get yourself 90 miles away and you should be safe. And they went over it. They said chemical problems, which are big. Biologicals, which where I live are big because just to the west of me and the wind blows towards me is major biological weapons testing areas. And if one of those pots gets broken, it's going to be a bad day. And nuclear too, atomic bomb or some kind of Chernobyl incident, 90 miles will get you safe. And the person very famously said, and the easiest way to get 90 miles the fastest in an emergency is bicycles. So you should always have this is this person talking, you should always have your bicycle primed and ready to go with maybe a 3-day survival kit. And if you come to my house, I'll show you the 3-day survival kit. I'll show you the bicycle primed and ready to go and a few other things I would carry with me. And I know I can get 90 miles in a day because I've done 100 miles in a challenge. I think it's called the Century Challenge. And to save my life and to save my kid's life and to save my grandkids' life, I would make that happen. So swimming, bicycling, fighting, which you're already teaching, climbing walls, crawling, all those general things life needs, okay? I would also expose kids up to the age of 17 to every possible sport. Here in the United States, we do way too much early sports specialization. Interesting, when I was in high school, I'm not going to, by the way, as a note, I'm not going to use people's names anymore when I tell stories because I mentioned someone a couple of weeks ago. Then I got a letter in the mail from the person saying, I don't remember that story, it never happened. Well, it did happen, okay? And that's exactly what you said. But let's just imagine the name will be Rupert. And Rupert was a football player, American soccer player, soccer football, and a track and field athlete. And in high school, we were in a PE class, and to get an A, you had to win a lot of tennis matches. And so he started practicing every day, and within a few weeks, in our class, he was beating the members of the tennis team in our class setting. And I keep thinking that Rupert, or whatever name I invented, might have been a phenomenal tennis player, but he went down a different direction in sports. But a lot of those guys in our high school team played tennis their whole lives, and when they went against an athlete who was really hungry, got defeated. Early specialization has great value for some sports, no question, women's gymnastics. But in the rest, it helps to just be exposed. And I've said this many times. I might have been the greatest saber fencer the world has ever seen, but I was never exposed to the foil, the épée, and the saber. I could have been a great kayaker, never exposed. Could have been a racing canoeist, never exposed. I could have been a great yachtsman, never exposed. So there might be a sport out there for your child that they'll be the best in the world or art form ever, but if they don't get a chance to learn it, they don't get a chance to learn it. So basic, that's up to about age 16, 17. So the next big period of your life is where you really do get that bonus of secondary puberty and all the rest. So from 17 to about 35, I would say the most important years of your life, physically and financially. If you make good choices like get a full scholarship to go to university, do really well, have a roommate who starts a company and you become an early investor, and then you make a lot of money, and at age 21, you put it all in a savings account. You put $10 million in a savings account that you're not going to look at until you're 70. Trust me, by the time you're 70, you're going to be doing pretty well. Physically, the most important thing, it's great, that line from Art Devaney got him in trouble. Don't get fat in the first place. This is the time to do ballistic sports, ballistic lifting. So what I would recommend at this time, this is when you should learn the Olympic lifts. This is when you learn the kettlebell ballistics, the GS sport family. This would be a good time to get out there and do some explosive stuff. When you hit 36 to 55, I would call that now middle age, but at my age, it's funny when somebody told me not long ago I was middle age, and I'm like, the math doesn't work there at age 68, But that's the time to do the power lifts. Get your base strength up, get that strength level as high as you can. So just like getting your career as far as you can, raising your kids as well as you can, that's basically those years, 36 to 55, at least for a lot of us. I know some people have kids younger or whatever, but still, those are the formative years. If you had a kid at 20 and you're 36, you got a teenager and you got someone learning how to drive, it's a good time to be a good parent. And then after 55, 56 plus, that's the time where finally, and that's where I'm at now, that's where finally mobility and bodybuilding become most crucial. Someone quoted me last week, and I can't believe I said it because it was brilliant, but what part of aging do you think will make you more mobile? And I thought, I read it was on the internet, and it was my quote with my name on it. I thought, hey, that's really good. I'm going to steal that. I might have said it, but it's a good point. What part of aging do you think is going to make you leaner? What part of aging do you think is going to make your muscles grow? What part of aging is going to make your joints more fluid? What part of aging is going to help, go down the list, check, check, check. So 56 and above, bodybuilding. Now, if you took care of this correctly, and I'm going to do this, pat myself in the back because I feel I did. At my age, when I shifted over to bodybuilding, when someone said, we're going to do incline bench presses, I went, oh, what is an incline? Of course I knew what it was. Having that toolkit built in the first 2 decades of your life allows you to continue to change and morph over time. So for training for longevity, if you can pull it off, learn everything you can up to age 16, including how to drive, and drive defensively and not like an idiot. From 17 to 35, get those explosive stuff in. If you're an athlete, play your sport, make your money, cash out, invest wisely. The best gift you can give an 18-year-old, at least here in America, is put $2,000 when they turn 18 into an IRA or Roth IRA, and not tell them that for another 30 years or 40 years. And just one day it all just shows up. From 36 to 55, focus on keeping those strength levels as high as you can and taking care of business, your mobility, take care of your business, your job, your career, your lawn, your house, whatever it is. And then reap the benefits after 55 plus. Enjoy life because you're bodybuilding, you're walking, you're feeling good, you're doing your mobility work, you sleep great because you're, with your body fat levels lower, you sleep well, you're not as much pain because you have your freedom of joint movements. There you go. I hope that was a good question. I really enjoyed answering it, okay? And I hope there was value in it. So thank you. We have a question from CJ. I love your armor building complex. It reminds me of my squat bench lifting day, but I enjoy how it follows the clean and press movements. Yeah, I love the clean and press. I said when I first came online that if all you could do was a clean and press, you'd probably be fine. People took me literally, which was a mistake. I didn't realize that. And a lot of people said that was a terrible idea. And I'm like, wait, that's all you did? You could get pretty good. Boy, there's a name from the past. Matt Fury just did clean and presses before he got into all that other stuff. Just popped into my head. I have been thinking about what a snatch row variation would look like that would complement my deadlift pull day. Maybe 3 swings, 1 snatch, 3 bent over rows. Maybe pull-ups instead of rows. Do you have any thoughts? Your deadlift pull day, you want to complement to that. There's an exercise, the deadlift pull. I was thinking about some of the exercises we used to see in that style lifting from John McKeon called long strength. But deadlift pull day, my only knock on your idea here is that you're going to slow down that snatch as it's coming down and turn it into a bent over row. I'm struggling when I look at this to figure out how I can be of service to you, because the swing, the snatch, and the row are the way you put them together is going to be pretty technical, and they don't blend well together. So my advice to you would be this: don't work too hard on this. Okay. I like the idea of doing either swings and pull-ups. Swings and chin-ups is more. I'm recommending chin-ups more nowadays, folks, because of, for one thing, it makes your biceps bigger. No, because I just think it's easier on most people's elbows. And we've known it's a more efficient way to train, since the 1970s is when I first read that chin-ups were superior to pull-ups for joint health. I mean, so again, there's nothing new under the sun. But if you were to do, you might even switch it up. So, one day you do the swings followed by the pull-ups, chin-ups. And the other day, the next week, whatever the next day is, you would do snatch followed by the chin-ups. I've never really thought about this, but that kettlebell snatch chin-up back to back, because the chin-up or the pull-up done correctly it's a great ab exercise. Sometimes we call this the posterior chain, we call this the anterior chain, but that combination of the snatch, and even the Olympic bar snatch and chin-ups might be a good one-stop shop for a really good training program. It'd be like one of those things. If all you could do was, 200 snatches in a workout and, piece together 50 chin-ups, you'd be getting a lot of work and a lot of quality work. So I hope that helps. I like what you're asking here. And I actually think it's nice because I feel like CJ, I actually learned something here myself. My recommendation to CJ, forget the swing one. Kettlebell snatches and chin-ups. There, I like it. Done. I have spoken. Okay. Hey, good question, and thank you so much. Okay, my friend? Thank you. We got a question from Ron or Aaron. Aaron says this: first, I want to thank you for your excellent overall training advice. You are more than welcome. I think I say this not often enough, but I feel it's an honor that you kind people ask me these questions. And I was just talking so I'm a volunteer assistant, and I was just talking to the head coach, and he goes, "You're such a font of knowledge." And I said, well, this is my 60th year of lifting weights. And if you don't learn something doing something for 60 years, maybe you gotta Yeah. Something's going wrong here, okay? Aaron continues, I wish I had known of the benefits of Olympic lifting and heavy carries when I was young. Preacher, choir here, I got it. But I am using your teachings to help my teenage son avoid the training mistakes I made and maximize his potential. My question relates to Olympic lifting over 40. I am 44 and a very athletic former athlete that has never stopped training. Then you're not a former athlete, man. You're still going after it. Athlete literally means one who strives for the prize. In the past 2 years, I have moved back to Olympic lifting and absolutely love it. I think it might be a key ingredient to remaining mobile and athletic as I age. You know, it's interesting. For those of you listening to the podcast, it is interesting. Have you noticed how the questions each week seem to oddly circle around the same kinds of things? Thank you. I like this. I think it might be a key ingredient to remaining mobile and athletic as I age. That's what I found. I'm 68 and I just lifted in a meet 3 months ago. And I mean, I feel very good for my age. I love hanging out with my grandchildren on the ground. I love living this life. So thank you. I have fairly good form, having had the benefits of being trained by a nationally ranked lifter in my 20s. My question is this. At my age, is it worth focusing on Olympic lifting and try to push my numbers up? Or is it smarter to stay at 70%, doing sets of 3 to 5, and getting the benefits of the lift without risking injury with heavier weights? I can currently clean and jerk 90% of body weight and snatch 70% of body weight, and I'm starting to think that this is plenty. Okay, that's the key. Gentle listeners, when I read this question before I started, I thought to myself, he gets a key. I will repeat that. And I'm starting to think that this is plenty. Asterisk, let's come back to it. And I should just focus on doing the lifts with moderate weights for the next 44 years. I don't know why you don't want to go longer than just 44. Plenty. What he said, folks, was this. He has decided that is the magic word in both finance, in physical, and just about everything else in life. Enough. He has figured out for himself what's enough. In one of my books, I quote that great song, enough is enough is enough is enough. I can't go on, or whatever the song is. I love your thought, and I'm going to tell you, I want you to think about a program. Now, if you're at danjohnuniversity.com, go to the workout generator or just go to the documents. That's where we keep that massive library of stuff that has all those, articles and little booklets and things. But I think it's also in Easy Strength Omnibook, danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore, or Easy Strength for Fat Loss, danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. But it's Easy Strength for Olympic lifting. But the one I want you to think about, and I hope I get the title right, Easy Strength for Fat Loss with Olympic lifting. But basically, I'm just share with you one or two ideas. First off, one of my favorite programs I do in that is, and it's the most repeatable of the programs I've done. So you warm up with usually it's what I call complex C. It's the Snatch complex that we teach. The complex I have my female throwers use from the college. We have them do, it's all snatch grip. So snatch grip, Romanian deadlift, snatch grip, hang snatch, overhead squat, bring the bar down, back squat, throw the weight to the ground. So Romanian deadlift, snatch grip for 8, hang snatch for 8, overhead squat for 8, back squat for 8. Doesn't sound like much, but the faces on my athletes always tells me that 3 sets was a lot. 5 sets is enough, okay? From there, you would do 3 sets of 3 in the squat snatch. I generally do original strength between those sets. The ones I would recommend there as your rest period would be the 6-point rock, and maybe even really get the 6-point rock instead of having your hands below your armpits, I guess. You reach out, so you get a lot, my shoulder crack. You reach out, so you get more flexibility. 3 sets of 3. And then on the clean and jerk, you go up a little bit more. You do 3 singles. I think for me anyway, when I figured it out the best, I would just hang from the bar. Then I take my lifting boots off. I put on my walking shoes, and then I do clean and press. So it's 3 sets of 3, but it's clean, press, clean, press, clean, press. That's 1 set. The second set, clean, press, clean, press. The third set, clean, press, clean. And while you're still, after that third set, you go for a half an hour walk. I'm recommending that to you. In fact, you'll find that 70% is still, might be too hard. I'd go really light the first workout. But everybody, I know, sometimes I feel like these are all niche questions. But, Aaron really makes an important insight here that you all have to listen to. He figured out, before he ran down that crazy road, more, he said plenty, which in my language is enough. And the nice thing is that he can use this toolkit to stay in great shape. He can maybe even encourage some fat loss and reap the benefits of training with his children, which I just think is awesome. That's really good. Well, thank you. Well, listen, that's it for episode 290. Each and every week I sit down here and I answer your questions, and I love it. If you have questions, pop them over to me at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com, and I'll do my best to answer them, okay? This was a fun, short episode, but the quality of questions was outstanding, so thank you all. And until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning.